Hello and welcome to Exceptional Undergrads, a podcast where we identify young adults that have achieved exceptional levels of success at a young age. My name is Jack, and my job is to explore their tools, actions, and habits to provide practical advice for you to use on your journey to becoming successful. I strive to provide listeners with inspiration that can be applied in your own lives, as I believe it is within the capabilities of any young adult to achieve exceptional success at a young age. Now let's jump in and learn some practical advice from the dorm room next door. Today I welcome Ashley Longbottom to the show. Ashley is an undergrad at High Point University, currently pursuing majors in Entrepreneurship and Game Design. She intends to pursue law school after graduation this coming spring. Ashley is a fantastic leader and public speaker. She has held many leadership positions during her time on campus, most notably her current position as co-president of the Entrepreneurship Club, as well as multiple positions in the professional business fraternity Alpha Kappa Psi. In this episode, we covered a lot of insightful topics, so expect to learn about Ashley's top 3 tips to ace your next presentation, her thoughts on the qualities that make a great leader, how she thinks through decisions as a leader, and much more. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Longbottom. Ashley, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, Jack. How's it going for you?
Oh, I'm super excited to have you on here today.
Me too.
Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? Start us off.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Ashley Longbottom, as Jack introduced me. I'm a senior here at High Point University. I'm currently studying Entrepreneurship and Game Design, Business and Communications, and I intend to go into law. We're going to see how that goes, though.
That is quite the introduction from Ashley.
Oh, yeah.
Ashley, you had a big event last night. You got to co-host an elevator pitch competition for the Entrepreneurship Club. Were you nervous whenever you were doing that? Would you like to tell us a little bit about how the event went?
I'm debating on if nervous is the right word for it. I was a little anxious because not only was I emceeing the event, but I was also in charge of making sure everything went smoothly. And I was just worried about someone not being where they were supposed to be, somebody not coming down in the queue and they were on deck. There was a couple times where someone would be next and they weren't there. And I was like, hello, where are you? I think I kind of pulled it all together. Fumbled a little bit in the beginning with my introductions with the judges. Learned very quickly that I need to space out my script a little bit more so I can actually read it when I need to. There were some nerves there, for sure. There were some nerves.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the elevator pitch last night was? Give some context behind it. Were you pitching in it? What's an elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch competition is something we have here at High Point where students apply with a business idea, and it doesn't have to be very developed. It is simply just an idea that they have. And then if they get selected to go further, they develop about a 2-minute pitch with slides that they get to present in front of a panel of 3 judges and an audience. And then the judges will get together at the end, and then they will vote and decide how they're going to divvy out about $20,000 to those winners that they choose, and then they can invest those into their products. I myself did not pitch anything last night. I've pitched in competitions like that in the past, but I was emceeing the event. So I was introducing the judges, introducing the contestants, making sure everything was flowing well, and then providing instructions and direction when needed.
That's quite the amazing event that you guys have going on there. How were you able to co-host this event?
We get to do that by being presidents of the Entrepreneurship Club. It's one of the duties that we have to perform. If we're not pitching, though sometimes if we're pitching, we have to MC it as well. I was co-hosting with my co-president, Sean Martin, who is an awesome person. He had a lot of people that he had been helping in the competition, so I had to do more of the heavy lifting when it came to the presentation because we wanted to make sure we kept things fair, so I did most of the introductions, and he was mostly there for explaining how the competition worked. We worked hand in hand just performing our roles as presidents.
How'd you balance preparing for this competition in terms of speaking as well as setting all the stuff up?
It was actually really difficult because even as the MCs, the order of that pitch competition is very important, and the contestants are not allowed to know of the order until the day of, and usually they don't know until right before the event, but this year we decided that it'd be better to tell them earlier. We did not get to read the script in its full entirety and its full finishings until the day before the event. We met at 8:30 Tuesday morning, to fully review the script. And that was my first time getting to see it. And I was allowed to make changes to it as I needed. And then on Tuesday night before the competition was on a Wednesday, was the first time that we got to see the script in its full entirety. And the order did indeed change the day of. And there were some changes made to the script right before the event started. Balancing out the script part of it and the emceeing part was very difficult because it didn't feel like we had a lot of time to prepare. I was literally handed the script on a piece of paper and a marker, and I was told to have a heyday. In terms of balancing out the order of events, thankfully, since this was, I think, our 19th competition, 15th or 19th, I can't quite remember, we have done this so many times in the past that we know what to do, what not to do. And thankfully, the contestants that we have had have seen the competition before, and some have even pitched in it. They were actually able to manage themselves a little bit by stowing them away in the hallway, and they knew when they needed to come up. There were a couple bumps in the road with some contestants, but nothing too bad.
I was able to attend that as well, so I watched you emceeing all the stuff. You did a great job. All the contestants, I think, did a great job. It was definitely a fun time to just see some of my fellow students with their different business ideas get up there in front of a big crowd and pitch. How do you think your preparation for this event, given your lack of time in preparation, I should really say, differs from more of the presentations that you'd give in class?
I'm not used to having a full script written out for me that I have to follow word by word. Usually when I present, I have points that I make sure that I want to hit, and I make sure I know my topic that I'm talking about fully inward and outward, so I can just talk about it off the fly, no notes needed or anything like that. Maybe even just visual cues is all I need. Last night was a little difficult. It's different preparation-wise because I had a script. I was trying to balance looking down and reading and then looking up, and I wish I probably would have prepared more for looking down and looking up with reading, because the times that I stumbled over words came when I would look up to address the audience, and I'd look back down and I would see the same word I just said, but it wasn't in the same place, and then I would lose my place. In preparation for my other speeches and presentations that I give, I like to spend more time researching the topics and memorizing what I'm supposed to say, whereas this one was more practicing the actual delivery itself and reading correctly and pacing myself, because when you're reading a script, it is so much easier to speak very fast, to get lost, and sadly I did indeed get lost a couple of times. I think I played it off somewhat well.
I think you did too. It wasn't too crazy.
Wasn't too bad, but I also used that as a good thing when I messed up, because some of the contestants, when they were back there, they were really nervous, and I told them, look, I'm emceeing the event and I messed up. It's okay if you mess up. Like, you didn't mess up introducing a judge or anything like that, like I did. So I was able to make jokes about my mistakes that I made in the presentation to help calm them down. If I would have gone back, I probably would have purposely messed up something if I knew that it helped so many people out the way that it did.
How'd you come up with a bullet point method for your presentations?
It mostly started when professors would always talk about don't put words like crazy on your slides. And I also hate picking out fonts. It mostly came from an aesthetic point of view. I hate trying to match fonts and making slides look good. It's just the dumbest thing in the world to me. I was telling myself, if I just knew the points that I needed to make, I could put like 3 to 5 words on a slide, make them really big, and then just talk about them. When I originally started talking in points, it wasn't purposeful in terms of good presentation skill. It was because I was lazy and I didn't want to have to make a full slide and put a bunch of words on it. As silly as that sounds, over time, through feedback I got through my presentations, I was told that it stood out and it looked good whenever I could talk about things without having to have a whole 50 kajillion words on a slide. And then after watching lots of presentations in my classes and I would see them with kajillions of words on their slides, I would see, wow, that looks so bad. And I'm like, so I need to sharpen this skill. And so it was just practice with practice and more practice of less words, more talking.
That's something that I do as well. For all of my presentations nowadays, especially speeches that I'll give, which I don't give too many speeches, I also do a bullet point system for my presentations. I usually will just put down a few things that I want to hit on. I remember a speech in particular that I gave on meditation for my business comm class. We had to go up there for a 5-minute speech. Everyone in that class was extremely nervous about that. And I wasn't crazy nervous about it. I honestly wasn't really too nervous because I picked a topic that I really knew at that point. I've been meditating for like over 2 years now, like every single day. So to be able to, at that time, go up and speak on meditating for a year and a half, that worked out really well for me. I actually ended up speaking for 8 minutes and did not stutter or say the word like or any of the filler words like that. I walked off the stage there with like 100 or so, which was fantastic. It was a great presentation, and I feel like anytime somebody needs to do a presentation, I'm always here to help them. And I always want to show that the bullet point strategy of just hitting a few key points when you really know your topic definitely helps make better presentations.
It really does. Those business comm presentations were my favorite. I actually did mine on Barbie. As unprofessional as it sounds, my presentation was on why the classic Barbie princess movies, so like Princess and the Pauper, 12 Dancing Princesses, Rapunzel, Swan Lake, are 10 times better than original Disney princess movies. It was a very controversial topic in the class. And my professor actually came up to me afterwards, and granted, my whole presentation was I would put a picture of a Barbie movie up on the screen, and then I put a picture of a Disney princess movie on the screen, and that was it. That's all that was up there. And I would just talk about the difference between the two and why one was better than the other. And the professor came up to me afterwards, and she goes, "No words on your screen at all." And this was one of the most professional presentations I've seen on Barbie. And I was like, listen, I do what I do. I was very passionate about it. So I've been watching Barbie movies on repeat since the day I started watching movies, pretty much. That's what my presentation was on.
I think the crazy part about that is it seems like she's heard multiple presentations on Barbie.
I know. I want to know what the other ones you've heard are.
I mean, at least you're at the top for that, though, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, whenever you speak on professionalism, I find it hilarious because for that speech in particular, the meditation one, I didn't realize that we were supposed to dress up. I had no idea. We were apparently supposed to dress up in at least business casual, probably. And I noticed, not until afterwards, of course, everyone else was dressed up in business casual. I was not. I was in my regular gym clothes and crew neck and joggers because I was about to go to the gym after the class. I had no idea that we were supposed to dress up, but it said on the rubric, you could also dress up based on what your topic is, if applicable. Now, you can meditate in any clothes that you want to, anything business casual to whatever you're sleeping in. And I somehow managed to get away with that. I think it was probably because my presentation worked really well, considering I stood up in front of the class. We were not allowed to have any slides for our presentation. They said as well that you could have a note card if you wanted to. I didn't have any sort of note card. I know my points in my head. I've got it. I took the podium we could stand at, moved it off to the side, and then just spoke without anything there in front of everyone. And I felt really bad for the person who had to talk after me. She had to then come back, move the podium back in front of the entire class. And then I think that she spoke on a topic similar to mine, something to do with like mental health, because that was one of the points that I made in my meditation speech. And I felt really bad after that. I mean, I did well. I think I got 100 on that project. Definitely the best speech I ever gave.
I have two things to say to that. One, I don't like when professors require students to wear business casual or professional when they're presenting, because I don't think that's what defines a professional presentation. I think a professional presentation comes from the way you deliver it. You could look like you came straight off the streets, but if you hold your head high, you speak clearly, that's a professional presentation in my mind. I'm glad that you did that and that you wore what you were comfortable in and you got an 100, because that speaks to the ability of being professional without having to dress professionally. And two, I hate podiums. Last night at the competition, I had a podium in front of me and I couldn't move the microphone, and I was having to bend over into the microphone and hold the podium, and I hate it. I feel trapped when I'm behind a podium. I like to walk. If I could have moved my podium last night, I would have, but that thing was a unit.
I'm in the exact same boat on both of those points. The business casual, it's great. It's fantastic for people. I understand you need to dress up and you need to act more professional, because whenever you're dressing up professional, you're going to hold yourself to a higher standard and be more professional. I understand where they're coming from. But as someone who does not like getting dressed up in a whole button down, pants with the whole big belt and stuff, which I'm not against belts, guys. I will wear belts, especially whenever I go golfing. I have a belt on, don't worry. Got to hold up my pants somehow. But I understand where people are coming from with the dressing up professionally. I just feel like I would rather look like I could go golfing or hop on a boat at any point in time. And I think that's the highest that I ever want to dress up. I feel that I could give presentations on subjects that I know, not in business professional clothes. I don't think that's necessary. I'm glad that we're on the same page there. I like that opinion. I like it. And the second thing, podiums are not cool. I feel like having a podium, it just limits you. I like moving around and talking with your hands more like I'm doing right now. It hides you, and I feel like usually the people who hide behind podiums are not amazing presenters. And when you really know your stuff, you should be able to get out and move without hiding anything from others.
I'd have to agree to you there. I don't like podium hiders.
You've been doing a great job presenting. You had the event last night, as well as some of the other amazing presentations you've had, such as that Barbie one that you mentioned. What tips would you have for people who are maybe not the best public speakers right now, but want to become a lot better at public speaking?
Tip number one would be in terms of when it comes to eye contact. Eye contact can really sell a presentation, but you don't actually have to make eye contact with people. It's one of the biggest misconceptions about presenting. You don't actually have to look someone in the eyes. There are 3 points in a room. You're going to look right above everyone's heads, and you're going to look straight to the back of the room, straight to the left of the room in the middle, and then straight to the right. And when you do that, if you're looking right over everyone's heads, you're not actually making eye contact with anyone, but to them, it looks like you're looking right at them. For people who are not comfortable yet when it comes to presenting to looking at their audience, practice that and just use that, because you don't get shaken up because you don't lock eyes with somebody, but you still look like you're locking eyes with somebody. So that's tip one I would give. Tip two would be, if you have whether it's a pitch or a presentation, and you have certain points that you want to memorize and you want to say something a certain way, never record yourself giving the presentation and listen back to it, or write yourself a script. That's one of the number one problems or mistakes that I see people do when they're pitching. They will write their script, record themselves reading their script, and then listen to it over and over again. The more scripted your presentation is, the more likely you are to mess up. And then if you get off that script, you are done for. The amount of times I've seen people pause because they forget where they are in their script, or they mess up a word, and the next thing you know, like, they're fumbling through the next parts trying to recover. It just all goes poorly. Tip one, make fake eye contact with the people in the room. Tip two is going to be, don't record and listen back to your script or your presentation. And then tip three, when it comes to how you present yourself and getting comfortable up there, is grab a couple friends, put them in a room, or even some strangers that you find, and present what you're presenting. And if you can get into the space that you are actually doing your presentation in, that's even better. And do something like stand on one leg, or do jumping jacks while you're doing your presentation. Something that is just absolutely ridiculous, because if you can keep your balance while you're standing on one leg, or you focus on doing the jumping jacks, you'll realize that you can talk naturally because you're focusing on a different task, so that when you get up there to do your presentation and you're not doing jumping jacks, you're not standing on one leg, you don't have to focus on that. You can just focus on what you're saying. It's going to be so much easier than when you were practicing and doing all those crazy things. So those would be my 3 biggest tips for anyone that's just getting into presenting and they want to get better at it: is get up there, make the fake eye contact, don't record and listen back over to your script, don't even write a script. And then 3, practice the presentation in the place where you're actually going to present it, and do something funny in front of your friends so that it's difficult then, so it's not difficult later.
I love all 3 of those tips, honestly.
I'll say there's many more, but for someone who's just getting started, those are the 3 ones that if you can nail those, you'll quickly learn the other tips and tricks as you present more and more.
I think not having a script is the biggest thing that you can do to make your presentation better. It makes you prepare more before you give your presentations, because you don't have as much to go off of. So you have to put in the work to make sure that you're presenting and giving a good presentation, rather than the person who just writes up an entire script word for word. Because like you said, as soon as you fall off that script and you lose your place, you're screwed. You have no idea what you're doing. And I think something that I really have started to implement in my presentations is anytime I practice and anytime I give a speech, they're different like every single time. And that brings out a sense of authenticity for yourself whenever you're presenting, because you never know what the presentation is going to bring this time. It makes it different. It makes the presentations more special and I think better overall because they're not the same thing every time. So if I go up and give another speech on meditation again and speak for another 8 minutes or whatnot, I know even today the points that I could say and the ways that I can pitch meditation to other people, or for instance, pitching this podcast to other people. I know what I'm going to say, and every time I pitch it to somebody, it's a different pitch, but it's the same structure around there. As long as you get your point across in the speech and present it well, I think that's all that matters. No one knows if you mess up. So if you pause for like a little while, in your head, you might think if you have a script, I don't know what I'm doing, I have no idea. But if you pause whenever you just have a few points, you pause, oh yeah, this is the point that I need to hit, move on, we're good.
Absolutely. And when we say script, we don't mean an outline. Like you can still have an outline. You can still have a note card if you really need up there that has the points that you're going to hit, but just don't write out word for word exactly what you are going to say. That's what we mean by when we say script. Not an outline is completely fine. And I actually recommend having an outline for your presentation.
An outline is basically just the bullet points that we're talking about. Whenever Ashley talks about just having a few words on the slide, that's not necessarily an outline because that's a presentation, but an outline would be more of tell them what you're going to tell them what you're actually telling them, and then summing the stuff up at the end, telling them what you told them. That's more of an outline. And then in there, you'd interject different points that you can be using, and then you'd go off of the points. It's easier once you have an outline to then build the bullet points that you're going to be talking about. And then speaking those bullet points becomes a lot easier as well.
Absolutely.
I know that you are the co-president of the Entrepreneurship Club. What do you think makes a great leader?
Oh, goodness. That is a big question right there. What makes a good leader? Well, the hard thing about it is no leader is ever the same. Everyone is going to lead in different ways. Everyone is going to work with people in different ways. In my mind, what makes a good leader is someone who doesn't have to be standing up front when they're leading. They can stand on the sidelines with their team and everything be running just as smoothly. One of my favorite things to say is a captain is not a good captain if the ship can't sail if he's not there. A good leader or someone who's running an event, if you want to look at it that way, anything along those lines in the positions that I've held, you have to be able to train and work up the people that you're with as equals and not just always be leading them. Leaders are supposed to build up their team, not just command them the whole time. And so to me, a good leader is someone who can give instructions, someone who can take criticism from their team, because everyone's going to learn in different ways, and the way that a leader originally presents themselves most of the time isn't what's going to work, and they have to take feedback that's given to them from their team on what they can do better, how they can communicate better, how the team learns. Good leaders can listen, good leaders can coach, good leaders can take criticism, but most importantly, good leaders are leaders who can stand behind their decisions. Sometimes as leaders, we make the wrong decision or we do something wrong, but if you can stand behind what you did confidently and explain why you did what you did, then you acted as a good leader. Now, the result might not have been the best, but you still were a good leader.
In the context of being a leader, how have you become more decisive to where whenever you make decisions, you're able to stand behind them?
With the practice I've got of being a leader, I've had to make many decisions. And more recently, I have also learned the importance of making hard decisions. There are easy, quick decisions that you can make simply as, what are the colors for this event? Like, what are the table settings going to be? Who's going to be the person speaking? And then there are difficult and hard and slow. And the key word there is slow decisions. They cannot be made quickly. For example, quick little story I'll throw in here is recently the Entrepreneurship Club went to CEO, which is the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, a global conference in Tampa, Florida. And there were some issues with our budget, and we originally had told 12 students that we'd be able to take them. Well, with the issues that were presented to us with our budget, if certain things did not go a certain way, we were going to have to cut that number down to about, I want to say maybe 6 students, probably about. And then we kept playing around with numbers. And at the end of the day, the decision of who went and who stayed fell on me. And that was a difficult decision to make. And there were many ways that I could have taken it. I threw out only taking the seniors. I threw out only taking juniors and seniors. I threw out only taking people that are currently pursuing a business idea. I considered only taking people who have never been to CEO before, because some people had already been. There were many different avenues that I could have taken it. And at the end of the day, when I was looking back on it, I believe I decided seniors and juniors, because the underclassmen would have more opportunities to go to CEO because they host it every year in the future. Plus, they would have more time to develop their ideas before they go. And then that also included some people who were underclassmen, but they were pitching in the competition. They were also included as well. And when trying to decide who could go, I had to look at a lot of points and data points for it, essentially. So I had to look at, well, what are the frequencies that people have gone to CEO? I had to take that into account. I also had to take into account emotional things, like how would this make the people that went feel? The 1 or 2 of the people that we were going to cut from the trip were one of the only 2 people that expressed interest to me of how excited they were to go. And I had to take that into account. But at the end of the day, I had to look at it and I had to say, I know they're super excited about this trip, but they will not benefit as much as some others would if they went. And so that's why I went with who I went. So when I make decisions as a leader, I don't necessarily look at quantity, as one would say. So I don't try to produce the most. I try to look at quality of what I decide to do. So I look at all my options in front of me. I take a step back. I think at them, and I try to pick the option that will produce the most quality result. And the most quality result would be sending the people who have businesses that would represent the club the most and that don't have as much time as the others to go. That's when, as a leader, when you make hard decisions, that's why I say you have to take it slow. You can't do those quick, because you have to look at every option on the table in front of you. There is always more than one option. So many people try to say, no, this is the one thing. You got to be a divergent thinker. There's definitely more than one way to solve a problem. And so you got to put all the options on the table, and you got to rank them on quality, on which ones will produce the best for you, which ones will produce the worst for you, because there are going to be what I call distractors, which are things along the lines of, if you're a leader and you have to make a decision and you have to choose between someone who's right for the job or a friend. Your friend is the distractor. Your friend would be quantity because you want to help them, but the quality would be the person that's not your friend, because they would be doing better in the position. Distractors are something that leaders get hurt by a lot. And so that's why you have to take it slow. You have to weigh out the pros and the cons. You have to look at how much quality that decision would produce and then go from there.
How do you take that same sort of decisiveness to maybe smaller decisions? Maybe not as a leader, but just in general in life. There's decisions that we make every single day, from what do I want to eat in the morning to what shirt am I going to wear today, to even more crazier decisions. How would you say that that differs in your life rather than strictly leadership?
Making decisions is all about asking yourself the right questions. For example, what to wear in the morning. All the time people make comments about, Ashley, you wear the same pieces of clothing in different combinations all the time. I think at the beginning of the semester, I wore the same outfit every single Friday for like 4 weeks. And people would ask me, like, why do you keep choosing to do that? And I tell them, when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I don't ask myself or tell myself that I'm not going to put on this shirt because I've worn it so many times. It is my most comfortable shirt. I love this shirt. It is a quality shirt. I'm going to wear it. It's all about asking yourself what you care about, what you don't. When you're making those small decisions of, what do I eat in the morning? Well, is what I'm about to eat what's in front of me, is that going to make me happy? Is that going to be a good quality decision for me? Or am I just eating it because it's in front of me? Is it worth going to take the extra step to say maybe go to Starbucks and get a coffee cake or something versus the little muffin that's in front of you? That's how I carry that decision-making process of quality versus quantity to the smaller decisions by just asking myself, well, is this for me, or am I just doing this because it's there? Am I just wearing this shirt because it's comfortable, or am I not going to wear this shirt because I wore it so many times? So I just take those things, and one of my good friends, Mark, actually taught me a trick when it comes to food, when deciding when to eat. Well, would you eat an apple right now? Are you actually hungry? Because if you'd eat an apple, then you're probably pretty hungry. But if you wouldn't eat the apple, you're probably just eating because you're bored. Questions are key to making decisions. Asking yourself questions that reveal how you truly feel about something, and then making your decision based off of that. Small decisions might seem small, but at the end of the day, they have a domino effect on everything else that happens. For example, outfits for me, if I don't put on an outfit that I'm comfortable with in the morning, it's just not going to be a good day for me. I have to feel confident in my outfit. While it might seem like a small decision of what am I wearing today, it really means so much, but in the moment it just feels small. So you technically would still weigh those decisions the same way, whether they're small or big, because at the end of the day, they're all going to weigh the same.
Do you look at decision making through a lens of more future thinking, or do you think about stuff more in like the micro scale of how this is going to affect me right now?
I am future looking, big picture, because in the past I used to make decisions based off of what I was feeling in the moment, and I've gotten burnt, and I mean burnt. Pleasure and joy in a singular moment will only last for that small moment, when a decision could last you forever. When I look at decisions, I always look at how it's going to affect me and what it's going to cause domino effect. It's as simple as when someone is procrastinating on an assignment. In that moment, they procrastinate it. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing terrible. I'm a procrastinator. I always procrastinate my assignments. It's just what I do. It's how my ADHD works. If it's not going to go in my brain, it's just not going to work. And I've accepted that. A lot of people will look at my decision and say, you're making an impulsive decision by choosing to procrastinate on doing your work right now. And I'll tell them, no, you know what? I actually thought about it. I was given a choice to hang out with some friends, and I was given a choice to sit here and do work. And the reason why I chose to hang out with my friends is because when I look at my future and I look back on my time in college, I want to be able to say, yeah, I hung out with my friends. I did something fun. I went on this crazy adventure. Rather than saying, no, I just did my work. Because you're always going to have time to do your work. I know that even though I procrastinate, I'll still get the assignment done. It just won't be at the most timely manner. But you only have one chance to hang out with your friends. But you wouldn't see that if you don't look at that from the future. I look at every decision I make future focused, big picture.
I started to think about a lot of my decisions from a future focused lens as well. I also used to think about what I was doing in this moment right now and how that would make me feel right now. The term for this is more of an instant gratification activity. A good example of that would be, do I want to eat this cookie right now that tastes really good, but later on it might not be the best for my health if I continue to eat cookies every single day. In comparison to the opposite of this, which would be the delayed gratification activity in decision, which would be more of, I am going to not eat this cookie right now, and I'm going to instead eat this turkey leg, which is more healthy for me than the cookie and will give me some more protein. And over time, if I continue to eat turkey legs, and maybe a cookie every now and then, but more turkey legs than cookies, I will probably become stronger and a little bit more healthy, and the result down the line will be better for myself. Delayed gratification activities are more of the activities that are hard to do right now, but give you a bigger payoff in the future. And I think whenever you switch your mentality to adding in more delayed gratification activities into your life will get better. I can speak on this through my own lens because the past 2 years, I like to use meditation as an example. I feel like that's a fantastic delayed gratification activity, along with other ones like journaling or going to the gym. Those are good ones. But I like to use meditation for sure. Whenever you meditate daily, and really just whenever you meditate in general, it can be extremely hard for anyone to just sit down and sit with themselves for even 2 minutes just to start, or even 1 minute, honestly. To sit there and to try and do absolutely nothing and not pay attention to any of your thoughts at all. But after doing this for a while, and even just practicing for multiple months, before I've been doing this for years, I started to see the benefits of how much more present I became and how that has affected my relationships with people. Because whenever you're more present and you can hold eye contact with people and you do not have a whole bunch of thoughts going through your brain, you're just speaking in the moment. Not that you're not thinking, of course, but you're speaking in the moment right now without any distractions. You just become a higher quality person, and your life ends up getting better because you're not missing the things that are going around you. A way that I like to think of this, and a quote that I don't remember if I heard this or I just wrote it down, I have it in my notes, is it's impossible to be present when you're looking at your peripheral vision. No matter how much you make eye contact with people or look around the room or whatnot, if you look in your peripheral vision over here or over that way, I can see that the screen of this computer to the left of me is on, and I know exactly that the thing is humming, and I'm not worrying about anything else. I can see everything that's going on if I just slow down. And I think the ability to slow down, like you said beforehand, about you have to be able to slow down when making decisions. Rather than making a split-second decision and having a slowed down time where you actually thought about the decision, that is key to becoming more successful and being a better leader, being a better person, developing better relationships, having a healthier life, becoming more fit. If you can take that time to slow down, take a second, think over a decision, be present, your life is going to become a lot better.
I absolutely 100% agree with you there. And I will warn those that are going to be practicing delayed gratification that there's also another question that you must ask yourself. And it is my favorite question to ask myself, and it is, at what cost? There is delayed gratification in terms of wanting to set yourself up so nicely in the future. And for example, we could choose saving money as an option. You choose to delay gratification by going on a bunch of trips because you want to have a lot of money in the future. The question you must ask yourself there is, at what cost? Do you want to have a lot of money in the future, which is typically better for you, at the cost of sacrificing going on trips with your friends, spending time with them, so on? That's just a very deep example, but that is an example of the dangers that you can get into with delayed gratification, is that you can get so future focused that you start costing things that are around you. Delayed gratification is the best thing in the world for you to practice, but you always have to ask yourself when you make your decisions, at what cost? I'm just going to leave that one there because that's one that you have to meditate on, and there is no right or wrong answer when it comes to at what cost, because that solely is up to each person and what you value. I value happiness, and so when it comes to saving money for me, I impulsively spend a little bit because to me the cost is happiness and maybe something that I can buy that will bring happiness to others, and even if that's for a short amount of time, it still makes people happy, versus having $20 to spend next week on something else. That's my example there.
At what cost is a great question. It's one that I honestly don't think about too often, and I think that has burnt me a few times, quite honestly, because over the past couple of years, I've tried to shape myself into someone better than I used to be, and I've succeeded. I've done a fantastic job at that. If I didn't start meditating and going to the gym and doing a whole bunch of other delayed gratification activities day in and day out, I would not be sitting here on this podcast and starting this and having the confidence to put this out there into the world and try and help people. But there have been times where I've taken things to an extreme and practiced delayed gratification a crazy amount. And that has it's worked out for me. I will say the benefits that I've reaped from it have been fantastic. I love them, but I cannot say that I have not made sacrifices in certain areas that I probably should have been a little bit easier. A good example of this, we'll use the cruise example as well. Last year, we had a cruise on spring break with a bunch of my friends. It was a whole big thing that we planned out. The time that we were planning this happened to align exactly with the time that I had first deleted all my social media and committed to myself that I was not going to spend a whole bunch of money because I had just been spending a whole bunch of money. My priorities were a little bit messed up there, where I was just spending a whole bunch of money, spending a lot of time on things that were not super productive. So I deleted all my social media. I committed to reading books about money, about making money, about figuring out my life even more than I had already had at that point. And when given this opportunity to go on this cruise with a bunch of people who I was very close friends with at the time, I at first wanted to go on the cruise. I was all in. It was totally, I'm going to do this. And then after thinking about it and slowing down, I made the decision, I don't want to go on this cruise. I don't really have the money to do this right now. I feel like it'd be more of a reckless decision. I want to have the money to spend on other things that maybe are better for me at the time. I decided to not go on that cruise, and I went home for spring break back to Texas. I had a fun time there. I got to see my family, but I did not go on the cruise that everyone nowadays talks about and said was a super fun time. Even people who I was not close with at the time, but went on the cruise and loved it and had a great time. And I missed out on that because I took it a little too far and didn't really ask myself at what cost. So sometimes you have to make sure that the decision that you're making, you ask yourself the question, at what cost? Because it can be tough afterwards to see other people having a very fun time on something that you know that you could have gone on, but you chose not to. And it's tough, but at the end of the day, you can't harp on the decisions that you made, because I truly believe that every single moment and every single decision that you've made up to now has made you the exact person that you are. And I'm extremely happy with the person who I am today. I wouldn't change a single thing that has gone on in my entire life, from crazy challenges that I've faced to childhood, being able to play baseball, playing baseball all the way through up through high school, and then not playing baseball in college, even though that was something that I wanted to do originally. And now I am a retired baseball player who gets to go in golf, and I love golf now. It's so fun. It has helped me make new relationships with other people that I never thought that I would have been friends with. I'm super blessed that that's been something that I've been able to do. You can't harp on your decisions because they're just decisions at the end of the day. And although it shapes your life, you can only move forward from right here.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. And then I would say that when you ask yourself at what cost, it's okay to accept the cost. It is completely fine to accept the cost. I got presented with a chance to go on the cruise this year, and I was going, but then I looked at the cost and I was like, yes, this will be a lot of fun with all the people that are going, but maybe it's just not the best thing for me to do right now because I worked a lot last fall break. I worked all the way through it to make money to go on this cruise. And then I decided, you know what? Maybe I should just relax. I'm about to go to law school. Let's relax with the family since I'm about to go into one of the busiest years of my life. And so I chose to accept the cost of having FOMO, the fear of missing out with the cruise, which I felt heavily when I didn't go on the first cruise either. That's an example of, like you said, it's okay to accept the cost and you learn from them. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons from it. You learn. You have to learn from your decisions and the cost that you decide to take.
If you aren't learning from the decisions that you're making, and you're constantly making the exact same decisions over and over again, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. And if you keep making these decisions that have brought you something that you do not enjoy, you have to figure out how to make a change. And making a change, luckily, boils down to making a decision. And if you take some time to think about your decisions rather than going with the exact same thing that you've done, maybe it's I eat the exact same sandwich every single day. Maybe it is some other decision. If you can boil down that I need to switch this decision, one decision can completely change your life. That's what happened for me. If I didn't have two of my uncles come to High Point University and eat dinner with me one night, November of 2021, I would not have been presented with a challenge to start reading, meditating, going to the gym, journaling, doing a bunch of delayed gratification activities, and I would not have accepted that challenge for, of course, just trying to win $50 at the time. It has been a priceless challenge for sure. That was 2 years ago to yesterday, I think, is whenever that started. And if I did not start that, and I did not make the one decision to go all in on that challenge, one day, 2 years ago, I would probably not be sitting here. I would probably still be sitting in the same room, or maybe not the exact same room, but the same type of dorm room that I was sitting in 2 years ago, not speaking my mind, not much more confident, and not the person who I am today. That's my advice for people. One decision can completely change your life. And if you slow down and think about it for 1 second and think more about how it could help you in the future, you might make the right decision that shapes you into a person who you really like.
The best thing that you can do for yourself is be proud of who you are. And I think that's where you're sitting at right now. I would definitely say your thought on changing your life can come down to one decision is 100% factual, because decisions always lead to more decisions, and all you need to do is make one, and then you started the domino effect. For me, my decision was to not care. I do not care about what people think of me. I do not care about some of the effects of, well, I wouldn't say the effects. I would just boil it down to, the best way to sum it up is I just don't care what people think of me. I don't care about reputations. I don't care about social constructs. I made the decision just to not care. And that has increased the quality of my life dramatically. And has made me realize so many things about myself. I'd have to 100% agree with you that that one decision you make determines so much and shapes you to who you are.
I've started to not care as well about a lot of things, specifically only caring about a few things in my life that I find extremely important to me. And I think the decision that made me get over caring about what other people think, specifically for this podcast as well, is one of my friends who I am not super close with anymore. I was hanging out with him a long time ago, all the time. And whenever I went to prepare all this podcast stuff, and like I'm getting different things and I'm preparing more, and I'm all in on this idea, and I love the idea, and I've been working on it for a year, and I'm super confident in everything. And I find myself hesitating before I'm doing stuff. And I was wondering, why am I doing this? You know that you're doing fantastic. You're all in on this. You love your idea. You're extremely confident. You have a great life right now, and you're so thrilled to work on this and help other people. Why are you stuttering? I figured out through journaling and just thinking that my inaction on this idea was specifically because of how I would perceive one person saying about this. I thought that they would think that it would be weird, it would be a cringe idea, it would not be great, and I would get negative feedback from the person who I do not talk to that much nowadays. And as soon as I realized, oh, that's a limiting belief that I have, I'm really going to let this one person dictate my entire life of something that I know can help so many people, immediately I'm broken. I was like, there's no way that I'm letting that happen. You know how stupid that is? You know how stupid it is to let one person who is not even you decide how you're going to live your life? That's insane. And as soon as I did that, I was like, yeah, like who cares? Now we're good. I love saying that. Just who cares? Because if I don't care, and I ask the question, who cares all the time, I know the answer is if I don't care, it can't be anybody else because I don't care about what anybody else is thinking. So it doesn't matter. So many of the decisions that we make nowadays, we seem like are so complicated, but they're really simple. Something that I write down, especially when it comes to making decisions, is you know what the right decision is? You just have to say it. You have to make that decision. A lot of times you just have to go with your gut and understand, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do here. Sometimes I'm just scared to do it. And it's one thing to be scared, but you can do things whenever you're scared.
I have to agree with you there. One of my favorite things is when people ask me, aren't you worried what people will think? And you just look them dead in the eye and you go, no, I really don't. When you're a leader and you do not care about the reputation that you hold, as long as the decisions that you make are best for your team, if you do not care what the others will think about you, you'll be one of the best leaders out there. I'm telling you, some of the best leaders and smartest people that I know that have made fantastic decisions when it comes to helping people are sometimes seen as very dominant or aggressive people from others. Like their reputation is they're very different. They're very isolated. But the truth is they don't care what people think about them. Their reputation may be that they're isolated, but in reality, they're doing everything they do for their team and they're just focusing on their team. They're not focusing on everybody else. They're not being the utilitarian. They're just focusing on their team, which is what a leader has to do at the end of the day. And so I love saying that I just don't care what people think about me. Prime example of how I'm practicing this in my life currently is as a game design major, I love video games. I love them so much, but I've had so many people tell me that it looks trashy, it looks unproductive. The stereotypes for gamers, we're stinky, we're toxic, all these different stereotypes. And people tell me that I'm adding that on to my reputation by choosing to play video games so much that I'm weird. And I look at them and I go, I don't care. I have so much fun. I stay up late almost every night playing some form of video game or some form of board game. And a lot of people are going to interpret that and be like, wow, you never get anything done. You're just lame. Like, you're so weird. You're playing this crazy board game. I have a group of friends that I game with, and we play these board games, and people look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, you spend all your time playing this board game with your friends. You're lazy. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm having fun. And that brings me happiness, and it brings me joy, and it's allowed me to de-stress when I didn't have an outlet to de-stress with anymore. And so it's a prime example of just not caring what people think about you. It's literally a liberating thought and feeling. It seems like you've experienced that as well.
For sure. I think it all comes down to just balancing things in your life. And I say this from someone who also believes in the fact that you need to be unbalanced at times. You have to have times in your life, in my opinion, where you're unbalanced and you're maybe all in on one thing. You're trying your absolute hardest at this one or two things in your life to make sure that you're doing that extremely well. But there are also times where you should be in more of a balance, where you can do some things that are maybe a lot more fun right now rather than other things that are super hard. Not to say that hard things are not fun, because I've learned you can push yourself extremely hard and have a lot of fun doing it. It might be tough in the moment, but that feeling of it being tough is very liberating. It's very fun. And those are times when maybe you need to lay back a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of relaxation. And I think that's something that my dad says. You need to work hard and play hard. I do a lot of working hard. And I think that because of my interpretation of this, where I have to work extremely hard pretty much all the time, that's the season that I'm in right now, where I need to pick a time, which I feel is right now, work extremely hard, and then later on, you can relax. And is that amazing? I don't know. I find it very liberating that every single day I can wake up early in the morning, work on something that I'm extremely passionate about, and go to sleep at night knowing I put in a lot of work during that day, and I was very happy doing it. Now, does that mean that I have to relax and do other things that are maybe not as quote-unquote fun for me? I don't know. I feel like if you're having fun doing the thing that's most productive in your life, that's what you should be doing. For example, if I have a lot of fun doing this podcast all the time, I want to do more of these podcasts. It's very productive for me to do a podcast whenever I'm a podcaster. If that thing also happens to be the thing that I find most fun, that's your purpose right there. That's the thing that you're passionate about. That's the thing that you should go all in on all the time. I truly believe that. And I think that that's one of the things where if you can find that intersection, especially if you can find it in a way that you can monetize it, that's entrepreneurship. That's the life that, in my opinion, you want to be able to live. A one where you can wake up in the morning every single day, do the thing that you really love to do, and make money from it, as well as benefiting other people and other people's lives. Because the best way to become successful is to help other people become successful. And I've learned that a while ago whenever I started my own business, teaching kids baseball lessons. Something about helping young kids learn a skill, the skill of baseball, whether that's hitting, fielding, throwing, running the bases. I taught them everything from ages of 4 to like 13. I did this for like 2 years. There's just a feeling of joy that I get from seeing other people do something and learn something from me, who I got to teach them something that I'm super passionate about, and they're doing something that I taught them. And I absolutely love that. And once I realized that by helping other people become successful and learn new skills, I can also become successful. I did that in that business. I've really learned I want to help other people. If you can help other people, you're going to be happy, at least for me. I feel like giving other people joy gives me joy. My parents and grandparents would always say that. You always want to be giving and giving to other people, especially around the holiday season. And that's what really matters. And the holiday season is like helping other people and whatnot. And I never really realized that. I was always like, come on, man, I want like the Lego Batman set. Come on. That's what I want for Christmas this year. I'm really hoping that Santa Claus brings me that. Come on, guys. But I really started to realize, not just in giving gifts, but just giving people skills and teaching them and bringing joy in their lives is really what's going to bring you joy. And once you understand that, that materialism that you have where it's, I need to get this new, whatever it is, video game set or basketball or I don't know, I really want these new pair of cleats or something or new golf clubs. I don't know. Once you relinquish that materialism from your life and you really understand that life is a lot more than just a laptop or a few Lego sets or whatnot, you can really realize, wow, this is amazing. If I just make a few decisions, this is fantastic. I love my life. It's awesome.
Now, I agree with lots of what you're saying there, but there's one point where I have to disagree with you. I'm going to get really sentimental here for a second. Putting yourself all into what you're passionate is a dangerous path. And I say that because it comes down to work-life balance, first of all. There's no such thing as work-life balance in terms of the quantity of the amount of work you do on what you enjoy and the life that you live. One of my favorite things that I learned from Deanne Turner when she came to speak here one time and we were meeting in a small group was someone asked, how do you have a work-life balance? And she said it doesn't exist. She said, it's called 100%. When you're working, you're 100% into your work. When you're in front of your family, when you're in front of your life, you're 100% involved with them. Now, you need to make sure that you choose the right times to be 100% involved in those things. Like, for example, if you're sitting at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, you better be 100% all in on your family, because if you're 60-40 trying to focus on work at the same time, then you're just wasting the time with your family. And the reason why I bring that up is because I am blessed to have the parents I have. But both of my parents tell me almost every day that they went all in, that they both went into the things that they pursued so much and that they wish they never did. Because while it was fun for them in that time to devote all their hours to it, they missed so much. My dad, I love him to death. I love my mom and dad to death. I just want to go ahead and say that. But when I was a kid, I'd maybe see my mom for the 1 hour that I would wake up in the morning to where I would get ready and she would drive me to school. She would get home late at night after I'd already gone to bed. Then I wouldn't see my dad until he came to pick me up after school, after I had already gone to my grandparents because they were at work. And then I'd maybe see him for the 3 hours that I would be doing homework and eating dinner. And then I'd go and get ready for bed. And that was my daily routine every single day, because my parents were in a stage of their life where they were very passionate and they loved what they were working on. And they were working hard to support the family. There was nothing wrong with what they were doing. And they realized that for so much of their life, they were doing this thing that they thought they loved so much that they didn't even realize that there was something else that they loved just more that was in front of them. I warn you and others that want to go all in on the things they're passionate about, there's nothing wrong with that. But make sure that you're not passing by the things that you might also love just as equally because you're scared to step away for just a second from the thing that you're having so much fun with. Don't get trapped in the fun. Entrepreneurs do this a lot. We get absolutely stuck in the ideas that we have. We almost put all our eggs in this one basket on developing this one idea. And then you have the idea and you're up there and you have it and you've built it up to be so much, but then you look behind you and you're just like, what cost? What did I leave behind me? I would tell you, doing this podcast is a fantastic thing. Your passion for it is amazing, but don't let it engulf you so much that you lose things that are good for you right now in your life, just because right now they might not be as fun, but they might be in the future. That's the balance that I give you there. And that's just my take on it, is that I'm not an all-in person in terms of there are things that I am very, very passionate about. And I mean, I'm a very passionate person. And I could go all in on all of them. Like, there are things that I would skip classes every single day to pursue and ideas to work on. I would go all in for some things. But I stopped myself from doing that because if I did that, I know that I would lose relationship with some of my friends, some of the people that I really care about. I know that I would pass by certain life experiences that would just be important to developing who I am. And so it's something to ponder on. But that's the only thing I'd have to say I disagree with you there, is that going all the way in is dangerous. But being 100% when you are working on that thing is what you're supposed to do. So it's not about the quantity or how much time in a day you spend on it. It's just when you are spending time on that idea, you got to be 100% in it. And it doesn't mean you can't spend a majority of your day working on the idea. That's not what that means. It just means you can't spend your whole 24 hours, if that makes sense. But that's just my take on it, and I know you have a different take on it. And so, listen, that's just how it is. Everyone has different opinions.
It's actually kind of funny that you worded it like that, because I think that's more of what I meant. Because the way that I see myself right now, I'm 20 years old. I'm in college, and I have an opportunity to be around a bunch of people. I love that. Besides my family back home, my 2 siblings, there isn't much risk for me going head over heels into the things that I'm passionate about. And I think that's super important right now. I do know, looking forward, I have things in my life planned out in the future where I want to be able to put and give 100% of my effort to other things. I think your family example is a fantastic example of that. And as soon as you brought it up, it immediately clicked in my head. I love this, and I have the ability right now to go all in on my business, my podcast, my anything. And that's a freedom right now But I also know that in 10 years from now, I would love to have a family. I would love to have a wife and kids and people who I can spend my time around all the time and care for them. And I think that is a huge point. You can't lose sight of the things that you really want to have in life and those relationships, because if you are unbelievably unbalanced, or if you don't put 100% into the thing that you have going on right now, that can completely destroy certain things in your life. And the last thing that you want to have happen is your energy spent all around and have it all wasted. So I think that you should be able to go, I say all in. Whenever I say all in, I mean like 100%.
Yeah.
But I think to go all in on whatever you have going for you at the time, and I mean that like literally at the time right now, like whatever I go and eat after this, I would like to be all in on eating the food that I'm about to eat. But while I'm here in the podcast and I'm not eating anything and I'm not drinking water, I'm just making eye contact with you speaking on the podcast, I want to be all in and make sure that I'm in a flow state of speaking and making sure that this is the thing that I'm doing to my best of my abilities right now. And I love that point. I think that's a fantastic point, honestly, because that's something where if you go all in on stuff, you might be very unbalanced, and you have to know when to dial that back. And I think I haven't hit that point yet, maybe, and maybe I have. Maybe it's all a matter of perspective at the end of the day. And it goes back to your point of slow down that decision making. Make sure you're not overstepping, but make sure, obviously, that you're following what you want to follow in your life and making the decisions that you feel like are going to be best for you forward thinking rather than right this second. Because if you think about it, yes, forward thinking, if I go all in on whatever this business is, whatever this relationship is, all of this stuff, whatever decision that you're making, and you're 100% in on that, but you're 0% on other spaces whenever you're around them, it's going to crumble. It's going to crumble. It's like a relationship is not 50-50. Whenever you're like really good friends with someone, it's not like a 50-50 friendship. It's 100%, 100%. I noticed that whenever I deleted social media as well, which is there's these plants that you're watering, or friends you should say, where you're texting them all the time, or you're just on Snapchat with them, or you follow them on Instagram, but you're not really friends with them. It's not a 100% relationship. It's like a 70-30, like you're kind of giving a little more effort to the other people. Like I'm giving more effort and they're kind of reciprocating it at least a little bit. They don't really care that much, but you're sort of friends. Those friends that you have, they're actually true friends who are 100%, not 50-50. That's how it goes. That's where you're going to be successful, is whenever you can give yourself 100% effort at the time that it is necessary, rather than half effort or half input on certain stuff. Because whenever you go half in on things, they don't work out well. You have to fully go in. You have to go all in on what is happening right now. And if you do that for long enough and you don't lose your focus on the things that matter, big scale, forward thinking, that's whenever your life starts to shape around. And I'm 20 years old. So like, what do I really know? Over the past couple years, whenever I've learned more of this stuff and implemented things like this, I've realized that I want to continue to live my life like this. And it's setting me up pretty well to have a life that I like, rather than one that I'm just kind of showing up to and half-assing everything.
Something that you said is knowing how you've hit that point when you need to dial back is how you respond to when people ask you to take a step back. If you find yourself being very defensive of when someone says, hey, I'm a little concerned, you're working really hard on this, I never see you anymore. And your defense is, well, I love what I'm doing. I just want to keep doing it. When you find yourself becoming defensive of your idea, and when you start to tell yourself that it'll pay off in the future, I'm doing this for my future. When you have to keep convincing yourself that and telling yourself that, that's when you know you need to step back. when it no longer becomes a delayed gratification where you're working towards something because you know it'll be better for you in the future, when it becomes you're having to defend your idea by saying that everything will be better in the future, that's when you know you got to take a step back. That's kind of how I've been able to measure things. And then in terms of with you being 20, I'm 21. We might not have a lot of life experience, but I could say, at least I know for myself, and I'm sure you could say for yourself, we've been through a lot. And even though we're young, we still have been through a lot. And something that I would say is being in college, the balance is more difficult because I have friends that I know love to work and they want to go straight into work already. I know I have friends that would drop out right now and go straight into the workforce if they could. I almost would do that if I could. But then I have to tell myself, it's 4 years of my life. It is college. It is fun. It's a life experience. And that's something that where I have to slow down and take a step and look at. And one of the biggest things is like when you're in college, you know, you want to set yourself up for this big life. Like you look at the adults, and I put that in quotations, air quotations, because we are technically adults. But the big adults, as we would call them, they have these lives that we want to mimic really, really bad. And usually our parents, we usually want to try to mimic our parents' lives. But then we have to remember that they got there not just by doing work, but through the experiences they went through. And so a lot of times when we're in college, the first thing we want to do is throw ourselves into work. And so I would say you have to take a step back and look at what are you doing with the 4 years while you're in college. And then when you're out of college, you have to ask yourself, all right, you're a blooming adult fresh out of college. Don't spend all your time on this one singular idea. Explore. You've just gotten out of college. You don't have to go to classes every day now. Like, explore. And I would say when you find yourself becoming defensive about having to tell yourself that you're doing this for the future, that's when you take a step back. And when you do take a step back, look at your experiences and tell yourself, okay, it's 1 more year or 2 more years out of what the average lifespan of whatever a male is in the U.S. and a woman is in the U.S. Look at that and be like, that's like a sliver compared to what it actually is. I mean, we thought high school was supposed to be the best years of our lives, and I barely remember it. You just got to look at the experiences that you have, and that's what you do when you take a step back, and that's how you decide what you really need to do moving forward.
It's funny that you mentioned slowing things down all the time throughout this podcast, because my junior year of high school, I wanted to start a podcast. I was all in on this podcast, but I didn't really know what I was doing because I was a junior in high school. Now I'm a junior in college, which is actually kind of crazy that I went junior to junior. Apparently, I guess my junior year is my podcast year, at least to start. But my junior year of high school, I decided I'm starting this podcast. I'm totally going to do it. I bought a USB microphone for my laptop off of Amazon. I was starting this podcast. I told everyone, I'm starting this podcast. Guys, this is what I'm doing. Here's what I have to do. I remember putting up an Instagram story because I could not figure out how to have multiple microphones for my podcast, let alone film the podcast. But I remember I had people vote. I was like, guys, would you like me to start the podcast now with 1 microphone or do it with 2 later whenever I figure it out? I don't remember what the poll results were. I made a trailer for the podcast. It's not out there anymore. I deleted it. Partially because it ended up getting switched. But the name of the podcast was Slowing Things Down, because my last name is Slowick. I wanted to also establish whenever you slow down decisions, you take a second to think about them, your decisions could become better and lead to better outcomes. And I liked that. It was a good name. But I never ended up following through with that podcast idea. Couldn't figure out anything. Had no idea what I was doing. But you saying that reminded me of that idea that I had a short 4 years ago at this point. I'm very glad that I had that opportunity to say that I was starting a podcast and put out 1 trailer for the podcast, which thankfully is no longer out there. Lord have mercy if anybody somehow finds that. That would be quite crazy. I actually put it out on Anchor. Anchor was the name of this. Anchor is no longer a thing. I don't have no idea how I'm supposed to log back into that account if I ever wanted to do anything. But aside from this crazy long story about a podcast that I never started, which I learned the lesson, stop shouting things out and just saying that you're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. Because if you do that, you need to follow through. And if you don't follow through, it's not a good look. You need to hide a lot of your information and then eventually give it a big reveal, because that is a lot cooler than not showing up and not saying a lot of stuff and not following through on a lot of things that you said. Aside from that, it did teach me the skills of I needed to know how to do more than one microphone for the podcast. I needed to figure out how to film it. I needed to figure out what I was going to talk about. And although that was 4 years ago, I really believe that that experience of miserably failing at this podcast has shaped me into the person who I am today, who knows, oh, we're going to not talk about this for a while. We're going to figure out how to do 2 microphones. We're going to remember to figure out how to film and put it on different platforms and build an actual website. And I remembered how to host the stuff. I got a different host that is not, or hopefully not, going to get randomly bought by another company. And I remembered the login. I put that in my phone so that I would never lose that as well. But saying all of that, it goes back to my point, slowing things down, making sure that these decisions that you make, you can learn from them so that later on in life, you have these lessons that you have learned to make the times that you're living in now a lot easier.
I will be finding that podcast trailer.
It might actually be out there still on Spotify. No, it definitely is. It's on Spotify. I will not tell you the name of the podcast that I switched it to, but it's on there because I don't know how to take it down. So if anyone can figure out...
I will find it.
Do it. I want you to. Actually, at this point, because if she finds it, then it'll be good. It's okay. You won't be able to figure out how to find it. At least not on my phone, because I have no apps on the home screen. So that'll be close.
Very nice. Very nice.
I think that is all the time that I have you for today. Thank you so much for coming on. Fantastic conversation. Seriously, though, that was amazing. You did a great job. Great conversation. Always a blast talking to you. Do you have anything else to say to everyone before we sign off?
Now you need to go back and listen to this whole podcast again and actually take notes this time and do it for real.
Really let the information sink into your head and take action. Make decisions that are smart. And we'll see you back here next time.
Absolutely.
And there you have it, folks. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Exceptional Undergrads. If you found inspiration in today's episode, remember, your journey to excellence starts with one action. Head on over to our website, exceptionalundergrads.com, for more resources and to stay connected with our community of exceptional achievers. As we bid farewell to our exceptional guest, Ashley, and the entire Exceptional Undergrads community, I leave you with these few key takeaways. One decision can change your life, since small decisions have a domino effect. Remember Ashley's top 3 presentation tips. Tip number 1 was to fake eye contact. Tip number 2 was to never film yourself and don't have a script, since the more scripted your presentation is, the more likely it is that you are going to mess it up. Tip 3 was to present your presentation while doing something ridiculous with your friends before your presentation. And finally, a great leader is someone who can lead from the sidelines. Remember Ashley's quote, "A captain is not a good captain if the ship can't sail when he's not there." Thank you for listening to this episode of Exceptional Undergrads. We're always looking for new undergrads to showcase in future episodes. If you think you or someone you know is an exceptional undergrad, please visit the Apply Here page on our website and fill out the application showcasing your talents. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And as always, be exceptional.